Hey, this is going to be a Superstars review for the 21st of May, and I suppose this is what constitutes a good card for an episode of WWE Superstars. I mean, we had a world title match, albeit it's an ECW title match and therefore it doesn't really count. We had a very good looking match on paper between Chris Jericho and CM Punk, and for once Raw didn't let us down. They put on a good match on paper between Kofi Kingston and William Regal, and it was good. It was all pretty good. It was okay. Chris Jericho CM Punk was a very good match at points, but Superstars is never going to be a great show because it just doesn't mean anything as far as I can tell. It just means absolutely nothing. What happens in Superstars has no bearing on anything else. It was my understanding when they first introduced Superstars that that the whole premise of the show was that you'd have wrestlers from different brands wrestling against each other. And I can understand that. That seems like a unique selling point. People would want to watch that. But that's not what's happening on Superstars. I mean, that's only happened once, as far as I can tell, on the first week between Matt Hardy and The Undertaker, which didn't even really count because Matt Hardy had only just moved brands away from The Undertaker's brand. And also since then we've had a match on SmackDown between Dolph Ziggler and MVP, which actually was an inter-brand match. Surely that should have taken place on Superstars. So, yeah, I may be wrong, but that's what I thought the whole point of Superstars was. And if that's not the point in Superstars, then what is the point? As far as I can see, the only solution I can actually come up with is that Superstars is just a giant advert. That's the role of Superstars. When you're watching the Raw match, you're actually just watching an advert for Raw in which the commentators say, watch Raw. Same with SmackDown, same with ECW. And there's a problem with that, because it just means that the show is never going to be great in and of itself. Like, when you watch a good advert on TV, you can think, yeah, that's a good advert. Maybe it even makes you want to buy the product. But it's still never going to be anything great in and of itself. So yeah, Superstars is just never going to be a great show for that reason. Also, it's quite a telling advert, right? If you think back to like last week, Raw put on a match between The Big Show and Hornswoggle with a run-in from Goldust. Possibly the most ridiculous match I've ever seen, but it perfectly advertised what Raw is about. Because if you like that match, then you will like Raw. Because if you like that match, you like crazy gimmick matches with crazy gimmicks and, you know, just sort of, I don't know, just nonsense, right? Just really nothing to do with wrestling, which is what Raw is about for me. So, yeah, anyway, I've talked about that I don't know why I went on for so long. Okay, first match of the night, Christian versus Tommy Dreamer for the ECW title. You'll notice that the ECW title is so unimportant that it doesn't even main event Superstars. Matt Striker tries to play up the importance of this match by by saying this is the first time that the ECW title has ever been defended on WWE Superstars. That's not historic, okay, Matt? That is just the colliding of two things nobody cares about, right? The ECW title, which no one cares about, and Superstars, no one cares about. But yeah, I think this match, this was probably the worst of the night, and it was probably the worst match I've ever seen Christian in. I'm not blaming Christian for that, you know, Tommy Dreamer's terrible, but this was probably the worst match I've ever seen Christian in. It starts off, the crowd are kind of into it just before the match starts. They seem to like Christian. There's a lot of peep signs. Have you noticed how people who hold peep signs never cheer? That's why he doesn't get a pop, because his like best fans don't cheer. But anyway, the crowd are just totally taken out of it straight away by Tommy Dreamer showing his impressive mat wrestling, and it's just really slow to start, and it's not remotely good. And the idea is that Dreamer is sort of trying to work over the knees, I think, but it's not even that clear. And one of the moves he does is basically he gets their legs in a surfboard position and then just pushes. That would not hurt. I mean, anyway, right? We know Tommy Dreamer can't wrestle. I don't want to criticize Tommy Dreamer, but he is shit. And I think part of the problem with this whole Tommy Dreamer's going to retire angle is that no one cares, right? It doesn't matter. Bobby, who's my review partner, as many of you know, this is his theory, I'd like to stress. He thinks that Tommy Dreamer will the writers will just have him lose, and basically he'll just become the new GM of ECW, which I think makes a lot of sense. But anyway, right, this match is terrible to start off with. Tommy Dreamer does a Texas Cloverleaf, which is about the most interesting thing he does in the match. As we go to the break, Christian low bridges the ropes. Tommy Dreamer goes flying over, then Christian tries to leap on top of them, but just hits his knee off the ground. And then Tommy Dreamer does what I'd like to call a front somersault off the apron, but what was more like a forward roll off the apron. Then we go to break. We come back. It's just not very interesting, mainly because Dreamer's dominating, as Christian always gets dominated these days. Dreamer just does a series of the most prosaic offense you've ever seen, just straight out of a textbook. I mean, the man's finisher's a DDT, that says it all. And then Jack Swagger comes out and interferes in the match. I don't suppose it really mattered because the match wasn't good, but I don't want Swagger to show up. I don't want a three-way feud between Christian, Tommy Dreamer, and Swagger at Extreme Rules. That sounds terrible. But yeah, and after the match, Tommy Dreamer and Christian wrestle over the belt, like just they're tugging the belt, which was just the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever seen. Anyway, I think this was the point we had the Chris Jericho promo, which was quite good. It was his usual heel shtick where he starts talking about he calls the fans parasitic, gelatinous, fraudulent tapeworms, which I thought, he's added fraudulent, I believe, and I thought it was a great addition. I think people are underestimating how good a heel Chris Jericho is. Like, I've heard a lot of idiotic comments by people saying, "Oh, I don't like Jericho as a heel now. I used to like him when he was a sort of, rocker, counterculture heel, but now I don't like him." And I'm like, that's the point in heels. You're not supposed to like him. You're supposed to feel like you've been betrayed by them. Chris Jericho is doing such a good job as a heel. Anyway, I've just rambled this whole thing, but okay. Next match was William Regal versus Kofi Kingston, which was a surprisingly good advert for Raw, if you like. This was okay. This was not great. It was quite short. It's the kind of match I'd be happy to watch pretty much any time, but don't really remember anything that happened in it. William Regal went for hit an exploder suplex at the end, was going to do something else, but then seemed to forget and just stand in the corner for ages. Kingston hits Trouble in Paradise. That's the end of the match. And the storyline they're playing throughout this match is that Vicky Guerrero gave William Regal this high-profile match because he'd helped her on Raw. It is that's just ridiculous. Is William Regal not allowed to have a mid-card match against Kofi Kingston? How is this remotely high profile? Anyway, then we had the main event, Chris Jericho versus CM Punk. This was a very good match. I really enjoyed this. JR keeps playing up this idea on commentary that CM Punk is really cocky, and I just like that to come across by them actually giving him some promo time, because I think that would be a good sort of cocky face. I think that would work, but whatever. This starts off pretty good. It's good to see two guys really go out there and look like they're trying to hurt each other, and that's what this looked like. Punk goes for the GTS early. Jericho does his excellent springboard dropkick thing. Punk does the springboard clothesline. He also does that really nice high crossbody during the match. They trade kicks. Jericho does the step up enziguri, which he's so good at, and it was a really good one. And when Jericho comes off the rope, Punk hits his massive roundhouse kick, which again was really good. In the end, we have Jericho goes for the lion salt. Punk catches it in the electric chair. Jericho rolls through and goes for the walls of Jericho. And then we have Punk go for a GTS. These are just really nice sequences. Punk goes for a GTS. Jericho rolls through again and goes for the walls of Jericho again. I think that's how it happened. And then Punk wins with an inside cradle. Did I want Punk to win? Kind of. I think he needed the win. But I also think Jericho needs the win because he hasn't really had a win since he came to SmackDown. He's only beaten John Morrison since then. He's lost every other match. And when you're playing him up as a big heel, I think that's, a stupid decision. But this was a good match. And, the wrestling in this episode was all round pretty decent. But it didn't mean a thing. So why did I review it? Anyway, please feel free to comment. to rate. Just tell me your views and subscribe if you wish. Okay, bye.